We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. If everyone would please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we get started, I've been asked by Ms. Tricia if you've not signed in, if you will sign in, if you didn't get a chance to. Everyone did? Thank you. Jeremy, you did? Okay,
I did today.
Okay, thanks. All right, moving on to roll call. Let the minutes show that all 5 board members are present and on time.
That's right.
Moving on to the approval of the agenda.
I'll make it.
First by Heather. Is there discussions or questions? Is there a second?
I'll make it.
Second by David. All in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Moving into informational items. First is the 2018-2019 audit report presentation. Gentlemen.
How are you folks doing tonight? My name is Colt Ward. I had the pleasure of working with your accounting staff here. I just want to start by thanking you all for that opportunity. You do have a great staff. Kevin runs a very tight ship.
So everybody should have a copy of this presentation.
Yeah, there's a copy and there's also a copy of the financials. Once you've had an opportunity to look through both, if you want to reach out with any questions, please feel free. So this just kind of goes over that the audit was performed in accordance with gas and governmental auditing standards. The single compliance audit of the major federal program this year, which was performed in accordance with the uniform guidance provided. If you flip to the next slide there, this just kind of goes over the responsibility, our responsibilities along with your responsibilities. It notes that the financial statements are the responsibility of the district. We do not take responsibility for those. We just provide reasonable assurance that the numbers on there are correct. That internal controls are, again, your guys' responsibility. We do look at them and use them as part of our testing, but we don't take responsibility for design and implementation of those. If you flip to the next slide there, all that information is available in the engagement letter. So if you guys do want a copy, please let me know and I can get one made available. This just kind of gives a summary of the audit. We issued a clean opinion on the financial statements and a clean opinion on the major federal program. Those are the highest opinion. It's good. Ready to go there. I want to thank Kevin and his staff for putting up with us for a week. I know we're not easy to deal with. I feel bad for them sometimes, but they are excellent. I want to just talk about the intangible piece there. We asked for a ton of information during the audit, so much, and you can usually tell with the speed and the organization that information is provided, what kind of staff you have. If it's all sloppy and it takes the whole week to get anything, it's kind of a little bit of a red flag for us. You know, it shouldn't probably take that long. Kevin is very on top of all that stuff. He got it to us immediately. Everything was very organized, easy to go through. I just really want to thank him and his staff for that and let you guys know that. Just talks a little bit more about the audit and some of the things in the report. There were no internal control matters reportable. We were not made aware of any fraud or illegal activities taking place during the audit. All of this information, again, is available in the management representation letter. Kevin has seen the letter and signed the letter along with Dr. Baker. If you guys have any questions or wanted a copy of that, please let me know. We can make that available. If you flip to the next slide, just notes that there were no major audit adjustments that took place. Everything was good. Like I said, Kevin is very on top of things. If you go one more slide, please. I'm trying to help you out, man.
He paid us to say this.
You did take me out for drinks before this. So this just gets into a summary of the district-wide statements. I want you to take note that the district-wide statements, although they are important, they are not the operational fund. So this includes everything. This has the pension plan, the other post-retirement, post-employment benefits part, the capital assets, all those other items in there. So as you can see here, that the district-wide assets are up about $4 million compared to last year. A lot of this has to do with you guys are adding new schools or not new schools, but making improvements upon the schools and adding the preschool. There we go. Thank you. And those kind of items. Liabilities and deferred outflows are up a little bit as well, and that position is fairly consistent with prior year. If you flip to the next slide, please. This just breaks down net position a little bit more detailed here. You can see the investment capital assets. You see, looks like 2018 was a little bit lower. This was just because you guys issued about a $4 million bond last year, so it just kind of skews numbers. We net that bond issuance against your assets, your capital assets. As you can see, restricted again is a little bit lower. This is primarily due to the other post-employment benefits, so the health care plan that is brought onto your guys' books via GAD 75. And then unassigned is consistent with prior. So I don't want you to be alarmed by these numbers with this steep decrease in revenues and expenses. This is occurred across all of our districts. It's very normal. It was not a lot that was in your control there. This was due to actuary assumptions changing in the the pension plan. So they went from a 4.5% to a 7.5% discount rate, reducing that liability. So when they reduced that liability, it reduced your expenses and your revenue jointly. It wasn't anything necessarily that the district did. It was just how the actuaries were accounting for that liability. If you flip to the next slide. So this is the one that you really need to pay attention to. This is the general fund. This is the operating fund for the district. This is where you guys get all your money and can provide for your activities. As you see here, the assets were up. Assets were up primarily in cash, and AR was a slight increase. Liabilities remained consistent. And I just want to congratulate you all. The continuous increase in your carry forward or your fund balance, it's good to see. We like to see that. It's a good thing. You guys are continuing to grow that. Let's flip to the next slide. Revenues and expenses for the general fund were fairly consistent. With revenues being up very slightly. We'll get into that in more detail on the coming slide. If you flip to the next one, please. So this just breaks down the tax revenue for the general fund. We break it into two categories. Your major, which is your general property tax. As you can see, in 2019, it's up quite a bit from 2017, about $400K from prior year. And then on the bottom, the the more minor tax funds are all fairly consistent. Motor vehicle and omitted are up about $60,000 from last year, but the rest of them are fairly consistent, relatively consistent, I guess, when you compare it to the general property tax. If you flip to the next slide, please. This just breaks out what we would consider major funding sources and minor funding sources. So taxes, obviously, like you seen in the last slide, are a pretty big source of your general fund revenue, and state funding. It's all relatively consistent to the prior years. There's not a lot of change there, but then you go down to the minor sources, and there's not a lot of change there either. There's a slight decrease in earnings on investments, but when you compare that to the millions above, it's not.
Well, yeah, and that one is just because the year before 2018 we had all that bond money sitting there earning interest, and we spent it, throughout that year.
So if you flip to the next slide, this is your expenses and revenues for the food service fund. Revenues continue to grow slightly with a decrease in expenses. And then the last slide there, this is the payroll summary. So we do a comparison. We lumped you guys in with all districts that were receiving less than $20 million in receipts for the year. I don't want you to pay too much attention to this slide. This is very skewed. It doesn't necessarily give a good indication of what you are compared to other districts, because the other districts could have been quite a bit smaller, right? 20 million low. Some of those could be around 6 million in total receipts, where you guys are toward the top of that. I'd like you to pay more attention to this slide or this graph over here particularly. So you guys spent 77% of your total receipts on salaries, and they spent 76%. So you're right in line with where you should, or not where you should be, but we're comparable to the other districts. Do you guys have any questions about anything, or?
When you say other districts, are you referring to all other districts in the state or regional districts?
Just the districts that we audit. So we audit 15 districts across the state.
So this is a comparison to about 6 other districts north of Lexington.
Okay. Combination of independent and county districts?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And like we always talk about that 80% threshold is the line, and so we're under that, and that's a good thing.
like I said again, the other districts that could be lumped in here, they could be quite a bit smaller. So it kind of skews it a little bit here. This shows a really good representation with the percentages. That's all we have for you folks. Is there looking through anything, or do you have any questions about any of the slides or anything?
Great job, really thorough. Thanks, Kevin, for sending out the detailed report over the weekend.
Fun reading, yeah.
It was. It was.
Did you do it right before bedtime? Well, I want to thank you guys again for the opportunity to work with such a great staff. We really appreciate it, and have a good Christmas.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Next is the principal's report. Luke, you want to go first?
I will. All right, a couple things from this to highlight is our winter math testing is finishing up, and so I'm kind of chomping at the bit to get my hands on that data. I'm a data geek. But I was looking at some of our stuff from last year and comparing it to what showed up on K-Prep. One of the things I thought was really cool was that last year, Mr. Hart and myself, we started putting a focus on what was called conditional growth percentile for our students. That is comparing how students grow compared to students that start kind of at that same spot. In both reading and math, we were above 50. So if a student is a conditional growth percentile at 50, that's about where we would expect him to grow. For reading last year, we were at 56. For math, we were at 58. Our school growth scores in both reading and math, we came back high as an overall school for us, score on that growth part. So I'm excited to kind of get my hands on that data and share that with our teachers. That's going to be a big focus of our PLCs, especially when we get back in January. They already know that first PLC when we return is I'm going to have a report ready for them in their particular grade level that I'm going to put together over the break. Other thing on here is kind of down near the bottom. We put together my SPDM council. We've created an ad hoc committee that's a math curriculum exploratory committee. What we're going to look at is what does our math look like across the board for the school. We're going to be checking on that vertical alignment. It's hard for our teachers with the way their planning block's set up to really sit down and figure out, what is second grade doing compared to third grade, compared to fourth grade. So we're going to spend some time and really, really dive into that. And we've stolen a couple teachers, the 5th grade and the 6th grade math teacher as well, to include them in that committee so that we could look at that district-wide to kind of see what we're doing down on our end to help them when we send them to Mr. Moore Westall in middle school. So those are kind of the two big highlights that I really wanted to point out. There's some other stuff in here. We have the STEM night, we did get those numbers back. The cool thing about this, or the STEAM night, was the people that we bring in from other places. So Cincinnati Orchestra, Boone County Library, Boone County Conservation District, the Ignite Institute was there. It is a really, really cool event, and Miss Lingle was her first year taking that on. She did a great job. That's it for me. Do you all have any questions about anything?
When will the ad hoc committee report back to the SBDM?
We are probably looking at March. So step one is we have our January meeting, and really the point of that is to get everything out on board, to say, this is what kindergarten's doing, this is what first grade's doing, second grade. And then depending on what they think, that it could stop at that point. I don't anticipate it stopping at that point. I think in January, that meeting, we're going to look at it and say, oh, we need to do some work to kind of make sure that we are better vertically aligned. So March is probably would be the final one. I'm hoping for a January and then a February to kind of present some different things to look at, and then a March to see what we want to do from there. Does that answer your question?
Yep, thank you.
Do you plan on doing any more STEAM nights? I mean, that was a really nice event. I'm just curious if you're gonna do one a year or
It is an
annual
annual thing that we do, but actually, Ms. Greg and I were kind of spitballing some ideas out there, and I like the idea of maybe teasing some different things out where we have a science-specific night, we have a math-specific night, we already have an arts-specific night. I love doing the STEAM night and having the big theme night. This wouldn't be in place of, but maybe some other narrowed down to more specific things. Maybe not necessarily this year because it's a lot to take that on, right? But for years moving forward, I think that's a great idea, and I think we got the right people at the school that we want to take that on and put on a pretty cool event for people. So.
months.
Thank you.
How we doing?
Good.
So I first put together some discipline. That was probably any other attachment that I had, Tricia, which is pretty nice because that comes right to the Tableau part of Infinite Campus. This really helps our PBIS committee so we can pinpoint some things that we want to do with our starting up with our committee. The first thing we looked at was kind of where are events happening, and probably when we first started looking at it, classroom and hallway have kind of stayed the same. They're kind of up there at the top, and they've stayed there. But we started to see where it's kind of that brownish color in the middle to the right, that Monday and Tuesday would start slow, Wednesday would spike, and then Thursday and Friday would go down. In the last month or so, they've almost evened out a little bit, and don't really have an explanation as to why they evened out. We do have a couple holiday breaks in there for some of our kids. We do see a spike in some behaviors leading up to some breaks, but the thing that was interesting is the morning to the afternoon, once they hit lunch and they start socializing, some stuff stirs with middle schoolers. So that's, we looked at that mustard color one down there at the bottom and said, you know, what happens besides just lunch? We've done some things to really kind of organize the cafeteria, but they are socializing quite a bit. Of course, most of you still have middle schoolers with me. That's when some of the drama starts. And then, so what we hypothesized was our classroom has the highest number, but we feel like a lot of those come from hallway. They start in the cafeteria, they walk in, and they come into class with this. So that's why we decided we're going to start with the hallway. And we've got our hallway matrix done. Our PBS team just met this past week, and we're going to start on the lesson plans with teaching the hallway behaviors. And then we'll be monitoring that light blue at the bottom to see if we're having an impact over the course of the rest of this year with our hallway expectations. And then I'll keep you posted on the PBIS committee's work throughout the rest of the year. But you know, the data is just really, you know, it's really good data to have when you're looking at discipline. You can break it down by grade level.
Don't they have their cell phones in the cafeteria?
Not middle schoolers.
Not middle schoolers, okay.
Our highest incident with cell phones.
High school does, okay. I knew somebody was
does.
allowed to have them in the
Yeah.
cafeteria, okay.
Our highest incident with cell phones with the 8th graders because they don't use their lockers. They're allowed to carry their backpacks. So we're working on a couple strategies in 8th grade because that's that bottom orange violation of personal electronic devices. The great majority of those are in 8th grade. So I did share that our any other questions about the data? I'm sorry. Anything
Really
else?
appreciate that.
Yeah. 85% of our discipline comes from 7th and 8th grade. I know it's not very shocking, but that's where right now 85% of it's in the older grade levels. So, and with 8th grade, it's mostly that cell phone is a high one.
What is it as freshmen? Do you see maturity?
Oh,
So it goes down, you think, for freshmen?
I don't know for sure.
Well, yeah, I
I'm just
know
sitting
on
here
the
in my
spot.
head thinking, I'm gonna see it and ask him on that tomorrow. But we have a lot of cell phone violations too. And we've had a lot of vaping this year.
Mhm.
I think vaping has got to
It's
be at
taken
the
over.
front of
Yeah.
our,
It is.
We have some with the older kids, but it's not as bad as what they have to deal with. We've targeted a particular bathroom at a
Right.
time, so we're trying to monitor that right now. So, yeah. Any other questions about that? I just wanted to note that our archery team, club, however, but they placed for the first time ever, and they broke 3,000. I have no idea what that means. Lori could tell you, but they were just so proud. I gave you a picture of their plaque, and it's in the trophy case. Lori helped me place it so that we finally got an archery trophy in there. So I wanted to note that. And really the big thing was, I don't want to read it to you just for the sake of time, but our STEM program it's really been something in the making the last couple of years with Ms. Gosney now. Ms. Gosney's had some personal things with pregnancy and different things, if you know her story, so it's not come as quickly as I wanted it, but worked with her. We've had the science fair in 6th and 7th grade, and she's become known as the science fair lady. And some of you have been through the science fair. I went through it twice with my 8th grader. And I keep talking to her about building a true STEM program. And finally, last year, Lauren and Tracy Bazika got together And if you'll read what 6th and 7th grade are doing, just highlighting some of the things, like in 5th grade, there's the engineering design that they're doing. We've always had some type of program there with engineering. 6th grade, new curriculum, they're using the WVISD standards. There's a lot of, you can look at the different programs they're using there in the 6th grade paragraph, and a lot of the engineering and programming things. And then the second half of the year, they're gonna try to build a prototype bicycle helmet. I thought that was pretty cool. 7th grade is brand new as well. Continuation of what's going on in 6th grade, just using different programs. And the second half of the year, they're going to be using some biometrical engineering. I have no idea what that is, but I'll stop in and see. And then 8th grade's kind of in the robotics, but they added in this game design, that intro to game design. They actually, if you read there, they had a gaming person Skype in. Was it Skype? It's in there somewhere. Yeah, via Skype there. So that was a really cool experience for the kids. So, you know, we've put some of our money from site-based into that to build that program, and we're just really excited where it's come finally. So, kudos to Lauren Gosney and Tracy DeZeker for building that. So I wanted to highlight that too. Questions?
Just keep encouraging that stuff.
Yeah.
The game design and robotics is really cool. Yeah, I think they talked to someone from Valve, was the who had Skyped in, and it's just like really cool. Like, I don't know if the kids understood how cool that was, but
they will.
It was neat. Yeah.
But that's what I wanted to do for that program, to get the science fair out of there. That's just kind of where it was, and then Lauren just had a couple of personal things that kind of slowed that process, so we wanted to do it right.
Yep.
But her and Tracy have done all the work for that. I've just signed the POs. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, hi there, and Merry Christmas, everyone. You're welcome, thank you. Just want to point out, this is my second in a row board meeting for the school year, okay? So there's been no tragedy in my life this month. So here we go. I thought this would be a nice time to kind of come back and talk about our transition-ready seniors. And we did this in August. Mr. Nash was here. And I just wanted to kind of compare about where we are after our efforts for the semester. In August, we had a listing of 72 kids academic ready, 37 career, 23 in both categories, so we had 86 students transition ready. So those numbers have slightly come up, back 2 in each category. What I'm real excited about is the 2020 intervention class update. Now, if you can remember, to be in this math intervention class, a senior did not meet benchmark on the ACT. So at the start of the year, we had 41 seniors that had not hit benchmark on the ACT. So since August, as of this morning, when we gave the math coyote test, and I'm going to talk about that next, but as of this morning, our number went from 41 to 30. So 11 of those kids met the math benchmark, or they got their career certification. Because once they get their career certification, they're considered transition ready. And then we gave them a choice. Do you want to stay in here, because are you working on your ACT, or do we want to move you over to the business math section, because they still need a math credit. So that's just fantastic, as is this number. Students that did not meet the benchmark on reading or English on the ACT have to go into this intervention class next semester. That number started at 22, and by this morning, we're at 13. So that makes it real manageable for the teachers to really target those kids in there. Now, this coyote testing is something that got reinstated in April, and it's another way for kids to meet the academic standard, the benchmark, so to speak. The difference between the ACT, which I'm going to talk about here, and the coyote is that the coyote testing only tests on one category. So every kid who goes in for the ACT has to take all 4 sections, all 4 hours. The coyote focuses on just one subject area, and there's no time limit. So for kids that are kind of stressed about the time, that's a relief for them. So reading, we went ahead and we tested everybody that was in the class, which was 17 as of this week. 2 of them passed, and 5 get to retake. Now the reason they get to retake is because if you get within 2 points of passing, you can retake, and they're taking it tomorrow. So we have that all arranged with the final exam schedule. The math, as of this morning, we had 33 kids in there. We had 3 pass today, and then 3 are eligible to retake. So that's where that number went to 30. Just this morning, 3 of those kids passed, if that makes sense. The ACT testing, we did have this last Saturday. So we have to wait for those results to come back. But of these 30 that are left in math intervention, 10 were at the ACT Saturday. Of the 13 that are in this English intervention, 9 were at the ACT Saturday. So once those scores come back, we'll be able to see if we can make those numbers smaller. The thing about the Coyote is free. It's sponsored through the College Alliance, and it's recognized by the colleges, which is why they brought it back for us. It's free, and a student can take it once a semester. So I think it was earlier this month when one of my math teachers said, have we given thought to giving this Coyote this semester? I said, I forgot all about it. So we got it done, and good results. And we take it once a semester, it's free. Within 2 points, they can retake it that same semester. So what will happen, for those kids that are left in the class, this will also be kind of like a springboard for the teacher. And then we can give this again second semester. Yeah. Any questions on that?
Is it only a semester, or is it like so many months, like in between, or like, not that you would turn around and give it again in January, but
right.
Is there a time?
Once a semester.
Once a semester.
Yep. Because we're thinking about maybe giving it before spring break.
Okay.
Like I talked to the teacher of the math, and I talked with the teacher of the English who's new and just kind of learning. And when we looked at the curriculum, we think we might be able to cover it and give it before spring break, because we all know how seniors are after spring break. So yeah, so that's the goal.
Good idea. Good.
Yep.
Good.
I don't expect you to know exact numbers, but
Thank you.
how close are we? We're in the same ballpark in terms of.
No, I do know
transition
that, because I
readiness?
did look at that, I just didn't put on here. So this is real close to where we were last year at this time.
Okay.
We ended last year right at 80%.
Yep.
So if we keep the same, we're kind of on the same track.
Good.
Of these kids that are in this group here as well, 6 of these kids are eligible for career, and I think 11 are eligible for an end of program. So there are some crossover things that we'll work on.
Thank you. Yeah, I know this is always a challenge. But
It is.
Thank you.
It's a good challenge, and one that we can
Yeah.
work on all year. That's what I like about it. It's not just one shot.
Yep.
Anybody else?
No, thank you.
You're welcome.
Moving into the construction report, Jeremy.
I'll show you ready for this. Exciting stuff.
Are you really?
Is it about the track?
Almost there. I'll stay there.
I would go up there.
I don't know. Track's never exciting.
No. Just thought we were gonna be able to put that to rest.
Well,
Good news.
the actual track where they sprayed the relay still looks great.
Good.
We don't have any issues other than that one little divot that they never filled in all the way, but short of that, it still looks just like it was when they did it, no bubbles or anything like that. So we're still kind of waiting on that. We had a meeting between the architect and Matt and myself, and we kind of discussed possible solutions going forward, what we're gonna do, and Matt will probably fill you in on that later, if he hasn't already. On the turf, the drainage seems to be getting better, so I don't know how many times I had to spray it, but maybe the cold weather has something to do with it too, but it wasn't holding the water like it was. Maybe all the raking we've done kind of loosened that up a little bit too. So that looks promising, because we had all that rain, and I went and checked and it was draining, so that's a step in the right direction right there. See, the paving project is completed, so we're gonna be closing that one out. They actually came back and finished it all. Early Childhood Center, we're still moving on that. They probably about 70 to 75% of the punch list is actually completed at this time. So once they get closer, we're going to go through a full check on it again and keep pushing us, but we're going to waste our time if they're not fully done. We're just going to look at it and say, hey, they're still 30% completed, which is kind of dumb. So I'm pushing them to finish over winter break, try to get that done, since I know it's Christmas and everything, but still trying to push them. So hopefully that'll be a little bit closer, so we can do a final check on that. middle school renovation, they've gotten to the point of where we got a completion for them, so we're onto the punch list items, which they've actually completed the majority of the punch list items on that one. I'm almost willing to say this one's further ahead than the early childhood center, so. They have really moved on this one. Yeah. I think it's just some of the contractors at the early childhood center that's really holding us up. Their lack of not wanting to show back up, even though we still have their money. So, hopefully they come back. It's more the mechanical contractor that's causing the issue at the early childhood center. He's got a huge list and he's just not showing up. So, the 11 School Road, the ideal building down there, we're moving on that one. We got the heat put in, got some of it cleaned up. Bruce is closer to being out. We'll start moving his stuff over to one side. And sorry, but you're gonna stay here. I'm gonna wall him off and get moving on that. The building department still is wanting us to do a couple things with electrical and fire alarm systems because people are going to be in the building, which is no big deal. It's kind of what we expected anyway. Restroom upsizing, which wasn't given anyway, and we did because it was kind of disgusting. But we'll get that taken care of. We got some of the walls already up. Electrical is another issue we have over there. It's in really bad shape. So we're going to have to work on replacing a panel. I don't know when it was, I can't remember when it was built, but it looks original. And there's wiring everywhere. So I gotta do a lot of cleanup on that. So we're gonna work on that a little bit over winter break to try to get some of the electrical cleaned up and demoed out of there too. On that one, that's it. And of course, you know, we're starting out the DMP, and I'm still working on the K-Fix, trying to get that fully ready, so we'll should have all the building inventories in and ready to go for that here really soon.
Jeremy, have you heard anything about K-Fix possibly going away and that change in state government?
I have not, so they're still gonna be, as far as I know at this point, they're gonna base our funding off of it still. Okay. So we're still gonna have to work really hard to get it in there.
Okay.
I think he said, not, I wanna say 70% of the districts actually are about to the level we're at. So everybody's really far behind on the project, and it's just because it's so labor intensive that no one has the resources to put into it. Okay. So we're a little bit ahead at this point of other districts in the state. From what I've talked to, talked to a lot of the larger districts, 15 of them we met about 2 weeks ago, and we seem to be ahead of all of them. And again, they got 30 buildings per district or something.
Well, I know you spent a lot of time and effort on that personally, and I want you to know I appreciate that a lot. Larger districts can designate someone to do that kind of thing, and smaller districts can. So just keep me in the loop if you hear anything on K-Fix and how that's gonna could change. Okay.
Anything I hear, I'll let you know. Can't follow that.
I can tell Rob's like wanting to go. I see, he's like twitching over there.
They're on my mind. I'm blaming. So that's all I have for the construction report.
Thanks, Jeremy, we appreciate
Any
it.
other questions?
Sorry you're coming in over winter break, but I appreciate all the effort.
I am gonna take a little bit of time off. Don't get me wrong, so I'm actually gonna take some of my non-working days this time. For the week of Christmas, and I'll be back in for another however many hours of work a week after.
I only have one question. The stuff on the punch list, like especially like the mechanical stuff, what's our recourse if they decide they're just not gonna come back? I know we've got the money, but do we just hire somebody else?
Do it, yeah.
Okay.
We'll hire somebody else to come in, another mechanical contractor, and finish the punch list out.
And do we have a deadline on when we would decide to do that?
More of, I guess, how hard we can push morale. Morale has to initiate that.
Okay.
And they're the ones that end up having to hire a second contractor to do it, because we're just gonna hold the money that we owe morale, and we won't give it to them until it's fully complete. The last full payment will not go out.
Okay. Thank you.
So, I think they got like a 2 or 3 day notice, they have to get a contractor finished up and go through some legal stuff. They're probably not wanting to do that because it's probably costing a little bit of money. But I'm gonna start pushing it before long, because I don't want it stretched out too far with other projects coming up.
Thank you. Thank you. Next is the attendance enrollment report. If Rob can pay attention.
I did a really good job. There was quite a few songs going on behind there I recognized.
Sing it to us.
So, drum roll please, with all the other music, I guess. As you can see there, the middle school squeaked it out again this month, so congrats. Everybody was right around one another this month. So, Matt has been giving you kind of the monthly update on this time in history 1 year ago right now. So, and I looked at some of that stuff up myself. So our elementary school, we're plus 53 on students. Middle school's plus 17 on students. And high school is still, they have been down a few students this year, so for whatever reason.
That's right.
Down about 16 actually, so. But everybody else is making more than making up for that, so.
Next year she'll have a big group.
Yes, she will. Yes, she will.
I'll thin them out.
And also for your historical records, this time last year we were right around 96.5 for the high school or for the elementary and middle school for that attendance percentage. So we're not terribly off from where we were. This coming month, I'd anticipate that might be going down a little bit more. You've heard about all the sicknesses, and you may have had your own kids dealing with that a little bit. So it hasn't been pretty here these last few days. So anyway, keep your trip. Any questions on that? I think I've got the next 2 or 3 things here on the agenda. Maybe. Oh no, I don't.
Okay, I'm sorry. Next is personnel. Did everybody get a chance to take a look at personnel? All right. Next will be the 2020-2021 school calendar.
Okay. All right. You all have a copy of that. Okay, here we go. Our committee met last month. We had a pretty sizable group. A few of those folks are here today. My notes there on the far right kind of show you what are the main things that you probably would want to know. First of all, one proposed early release day on April 23rd, and that's going to be that's boxed in there on the April one. That does coincide with prom. We had rather spirited debate about that. That probably took most of our time, but in the end, the committee kind of came to a consensus that at one point we were kind of saying we don't really know if we need any, but we came back to the one just because we know that there's a day there where every school could use the time to do their ethics training for K-Prep testing, and that's always something that everybody has to do every year. That's a perfect time to do that. And it also coincides with prom, which could end up being a heavy day of early releases for those high school kids. So sometimes you just kind of throw up the white flag and let it be. So, so that, and in addition to that, everything else is about the way it was on last year's calendar, save for the presidential election is this year coming up, as you know. So we have made that Tuesday election day as a non-instructional day, and then also the day before, so that the families and kids can have a 4-day weekend there. We were again a little afraid at the prospect of everybody having that weird day where you come and then you don't come, then you got to come again. It just is kind of weird in there. So and we did that at the last presidential election, just so you know, for historical reasons. But everything else is right about the same as what it's been here of late. So I don't really have a lot more to tell you. Oh, spring break does coincide with your with Good Friday, we elected to not take the spring break that Boone is going to take. So our Ignite and technical school kids will be on 2 different spring break weeks there, but that's a bonus for them, I guess. So our spring break week is about a week ahead of Boone's. So we kind of felt the span of time between Christmas break all the way to spring break was a pretty long time, and going another week in there was a lot of time. So we pushed it back. So this is your draft to do with what you will. You can we will put it up for vote next month. In between now and then, if you'd like anything to be addressed or any questions answered, I can be the point person on that if we need to. If not, you can kind of chew on this for a month and we can vote on it next month.
I have a question.
Okay.
So I can't remember if it was last year or the year before that. We had a big discussion about early release days and how it was really beneficial for high school and middle school, but chaotic for elementary school. We have early release days this year, so I'm curious, why did we throw it out for next year?
We went back and tried to figure that out, Heather. I believe it left off that the committee was recommending no early release days, but we ended up adding those early release days back at the board, through the board motion. So the historical reference there, I believe, is just that schools wanted to have that time for their professional development. So at this point in time, we brought that back up again, and the schools were, for the most part, in agreement that they felt like they could probably get that work done in their PLC times if they had some work that needed to be done. If both of the principals, all 3 of the principals were at our committee meeting. So if anybody would like to chime in on that.
As a middle school, we've essentially adjusted our schedule for those content PLCs within our faculty meeting schedule with kind of the anticipation, because the early release days were kind of a little inconsistent at times, so that gave us more consistency with the idea that we knew it was going to come up in discussion in the calendar committee. So we made that adjustment now that our monthly faculty meetings are now for the content PLCs, because they don't have common planning time between grade levels. And that's what we were using the early release scores in the middle school.
Right. Okay.
I'm kind of with Heather on this one. I felt like it was that was the first thing I noticed on the calendar I went to.
Yeah.
And here's my thoughts on that. And I talked to Dr. Baker, and I asked him if we could kind of table to put it in informational and vote next month, because I'd really like to send out a poll to the teachers, because after I saw this, I had talked to teachers and they were clueless. They were like, we didn't know. No one told us. And so my main concern is, like, I just, like, I know what the committee members say, but I don't always feel like that goes back to the actual people that it's affecting. And maybe if it does, it goes to people in their department or their 2 best friends that agree with them, and not a whole different department that it matters to them a lot, that kind of stuff. And this is how I feel about things. I feel like, and I don't feel like I'm alone on this because I've had conversations, not Walton Verona, I think the state of Kentucky, but us included, because we are so small, our teachers wear many, many hats, and we continue to load and load and load and give them no more, 1% here and 1% there when we can. So I feel like that when I did ask these teachers if they were okay with it, first they didn't know, and second, I was like, so your stuff might have to go to after school. Would you be okay if your data breakdown of the ACT moved to your PLC, and now your PLC stuff will have to go to after school? And they were like, well, no, we have, there's things that's going on that we're already doing. It'd just be another day on top of them after school. So if the teachers are okay with it, I'm okay with it. I really don't care personally, one way or another. I know it's hectic for the elementary, and I get that. But if it's beneficial to 2/3 of our teachers in schools, I think we need to continue to rally around that and maybe find a better solution for the elementary school, whether that would be get PTA involved with busing the kids out instead of the teachers taking their classes out, let PTA help, or let the beta kids are always looking for volunteer hours, that kind of stuff. Like, try something different, figure it out on that end to where the teacher can go right to the meeting if they need to. Because I get elementary is way more hectic with the buses and the teachers or the kids getting out on time, I get that. But I feel like if it's beneficial and we do a lot of data breakdown and a lot of stuff that helps our kids at the end of the day, then I feel like I even had a teacher that I asked that was there, and she's like, I don't remember talking about any of that. And I said, what time was your meeting? And she's like, after school. I'm like, that's my point. I feel like your all's brains are like done. You're just looking ahead to 5 o'clock to get out of here because you got something to do or whatever. So that's what I'm saying. I don't want to question anybody. I believe the committee members did, but I just don't know how much it got back to the staff and their input was into it. So I'd like to hear from everybody. So
Sure.
Dr. Baker said he would work on a poll for that for us, so we can kind of hear what everybody has to say on that. And like I said, I don't care, but I think they have a right to have an input in how it affects them. And so I'll go with the group as far as that's concerned. If they don't want them, the group, then that's fine. I don't care. But I think that everyone should have a say.
That is, I did not send this, our recommendation out to the staff on an email or anything. So
Right.
they wouldn't have gotten that, in an email blast. Or
Right,
anybody,
right.
Unless the schools were kind of talking it up or anything. So,
Yeah.
we can
Okay.
send out a simple poll and
Okay.
just kind of.
And just like I was asking, like if could you just say like, do you want it, yes or no? However you want to phrase that. And then if you're voting no, you don't want early release days, you understand that there may be times you're asked to stay after school for an after school meeting for whatever goes on. Like, I think they need to know that it's.
Yeah, and most of
Yes.
what we do, I think, just speaking from the principal side of things, I think we all do a pretty good job of keeping things within
Right.
school time, trying not to kill people too much with
Yeah.
after school duty.
I just feel like they're wearing more and more hats every day.
They do, no doubt.
And their pay doesn't always reflect that. And so I think if there's little things along the way that we can do.
Right.
And I know it's an inconvenience to parents at times. I completely understand and respect that, but I feel like if you have the calendar a year ahead of time, you can make, so we're not just springing on them. I feel like we have a snow day and that's sprung on them and they figure things out. So, I mean, as much as I respect the working parents too, I think that sometimes our teachers need a little bit of help in there.
I'd say I thought it was a great discussion at the meeting. I think Rob had said we spent most of our time on this, and it wasn't that folks were negotiating for like how can we get more. I think for the most part, the room was kind of siding towards not having any at all. And I'd be surprised if any teacher didn't remember talking about it, because that seemed like 20-25 minutes that we spent just on that subject. And
It
I know
wasn't that you didn't talk about it, it was the way that, like, did they understand that things could go after school and that kind of stuff, like, any of that was not discussed, she felt like she couldn't remember it.
I know last year it was middle school and high school kind of wanted all of these and elementary school didn't, but this year Eric rearranged some things at the school, and so now I think really it was just the high school that would really be able to use that extra time, but even Joanne was willing to compromise on that.
Well, yeah, and Joanne was a little outnumbered. And I did take the information back to the teachers at department meetings last week. And I remember the survey from last year or 2 years ago, and I got to see the results, and my staff was pretty split 50-50. So I don't think that, but the one thing when I went around and talked to the staff last week, and if you talk to any of my teachers and they aren't aware, they might have just not been at that department meeting, or they might have been somewhere else. But the one day that they were kind of like, what about, do you think we can get the day of graduation?
Yeah.
That was one that, because we expect the high school teachers to be at the graduation. And to do that, to turn around and get to the church by 5:30 if you're in the choir and all that, that was the biggest one that I heard. Do I think that I can use our PLC time in the morning for data breakdown and things like that? Yes, but I really missed the one that we had this year in October that aligned with, the state testing results. Because that gave department chairs a larger chunk of time to, but the committee, I respect what the committee did, and you've got all different voices, and, I was a high school voice, and I had a teacher with me, and that's who volunteered, so, but the parents, problematic for the parents, you know, and I understand that too. So I think it did come to a compromise, but, I was just curious, is there any consideration given to doing an early release just for this campus? And then no early release at the elementary one? That would be a little bit more money to pay your bus driver 4 or 5 times in the school year, because they would be picking us up at 1 o'clock, but still be on the same timetable. So maybe an extra 90 minutes per driver, however many days you decide.
Would it really be extra, or would it just be swapping their late time for their early time?
But would you make them go back after the high school, middle school run,
Oh,
clock
because you have
out?
to get middle school, you have to still get middle school, and, I was thinking you do high school, middle school, and then go back and get elementary.
But if you staggered it, so only this campus did an early release, because I think kids at this building, it's not as inconvenient for parents. Maybe the 5th graders might be a little worried, but that might be, I don't know if that'd be possible. So we'll do whatever you decide, but I just know that, and I know the last time we did a survey, my state was split. So 50% really wanted it and 50% didn't. So,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, I would like to hear from them, and if that's why I said I don't
Yeah.
care. It doesn't matter to me personally.
And we didn't add anything at the middle school, so, and our teachers should know that we've adjusted that PLC time. We always had a 1 hour faculty meeting per month. We just changed what we're doing in that 1 hour. So they should know that in the middle school, we're not adding anything more if we go with this. So.
Yeah, and I would just have to restructure the PLC time in the mornings, because I don't think I'd be very successful at having an after-school meeting, because of the number of my teachers that coach or sponsor stuff, or, you know, I would just have a harder time. I just know in those morning sessions, and I'm lucky, I have that once a week, and I can, but the truth is, starting and stopping in a 40-minute time period on a Wednesday morning is a lot different than starting and stopping in a 90-minute period on the early release time. So, but I respect what the committee did.
Right.
You know, and I thought we worked well together, but speaking for my school, you know, I wasn't real happy, but I'll compromise. Yeah.
What we will do is Rob and I will get a survey out the week after Christmas break, give people that first week to apply. So that second week after Christmas break, we'll send those survey results to everybody. When I say everybody, I mean everybody, okay? So we'll get that out.
Any questions about anything besides the?
Yes, I did. One other thing. And I know Mark told us this years ago, and I can't, for the life of me, he talked about it being back to the college classes, but exactly why do we start so early? Like, because I went through and looked at everyone else's calendar around us, Beechwood, Boone, Kenton, Gallatin, Carroll, Campbell, and they're all the week behind us.
We don't have to. This has been our traditional calendar for as long as I can remember.
Was he talking about the dual credit classes?
I think
He
it
might
went
have been
back
talking
to
about
something
the-
about the high school. I knew it revolved around the high school, but I couldn't remember why. And I'm like, well, these are all high schools that offer, you know, the dual credit and that kind of stuff. And, you know, our kids go to the tech school, so those kids don't even do anything for that week either. And so I'm just sitting here thinking, like, why? Because when you talk to parents, they would prefer to go longer in May and start later in August, knowing that you could go into June with snow days, like they get that. So I just remember, I think it was my first or second year on the board. Mark,
Yeah,
it always went back to the high school and dual
Yeah.
credit.
Did it go back to
I
high
was
school
in
and
AP.
It was something, I know it revolved around the high school.
receipt time for credits?
It was high school, it's all I can
And the
really
two
remember.
classes, because when you first were here, we didn't have a lot of dual credit.
Okay.
So what we had, with the two classes that ended the semester, for the high school, you have to have a certain amount of seat time in order to qualify as credit.
Okay.
So, because of the long week at fall break in October, to recapture that time and to have enough seat time for the credits, just your high school credits, not dual credits.
Okay.
But you know, your kids that end third period and sixth period, those
Right,
classes,
right.
that to award a credit has to have a certain amount of seat time. So, if you calculate that seat time and it ends by Christmas break, then you can finish the class at Christmas.
Okay.
Give the exam, finish the class. If you don't have that seat time, you gotta come back after
Okay.
Christmas, and then,
That's
and then
making
do
sense.
that.
Yes, I remember him talking about coming back after Christmas.
And then you would take your
The kids,
exams.
the high school kids didn't want it because they wanted to be done at Christmas and not come back and take exams after Christmas.
Yeah, I mean, I've taught
Okay.
under both, like block and there's some learning loss over the break that when you come back and you give the exams, you know, if you want to give the student the benefit of the doubt, you're gonna do a little bit of review. So there is that nice finality of ending at the holiday. And that gives everybody a chance to kind of get everything graded. We also get a chance from our standpoint, like our administrative team comes in to look at everybody that failed a third period or sixth period. And if it's a class that they need for graduation, we look to see if we can put them back in. So that 2-week period just kind of gives us a chance. It's selfish, but we will do that too. We wouldn't have that kind of turnaround time if the semester ended on January whatever, and then the next semester started the next day.
So that
But it
still
was the seat
applies
time.
then? Is the seat time still applies? Okay, so that's what it is?
Yeah.
Okay. I knew there was a reason, but I didn't know if it still applied and what, because we're just so much earlier than, everybody
Yes.
seems to be dropping back. Like Boone, Kenton is all the way to the 21st.
Yeah.
And Boone and them are all coming back to the 14th and 13th, and
Yeah.
I was just wondering why we were a whole week ahead.
It's your fall break.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
does.
it does,
Yeah.
it does, but if you look at the school below us, Southern, they take the fall break and they're still
But I
starting
wonder if
at
their semesters end. Or if their period, if they're
I
all
know,
year.
like
or
January
block.
6th is, grades are due for another district, but not at January 6th for this, so it's after, I
Yeah.
guess. But they go longer in May too, so, to get their days in, I guess.
Right.
Okay, all right, thank you, I knew it was something, thanks, I appreciate it.
Is that it? My only question is, I thought last year it was presented with like 2 or 3 options of a calendar. Is this the way it's always been? You
We
just
have
throw
had-
one calendar out and?
We have had some years where we've had multiple options for you, but this year, no one really was raising a stink about the way
anything?
things have kind of been for a while, and frankly, I didn't present the committee with more than just this, but all of this is 100% moldable. So, if there are things that aren't going well from your all's perspective that we may need to address, certainly we can do that. But this, no, I mean.
That's all I was curious about, like, was it in my head that there was a couple out there?
You're
And then
not
this
wrong.
year
You're not wrong about that, but I'm not sure about last year.
well, that'd be the only year that I ever had, was in here for that, so.
Okay, well, yeah, we have had years where we've done that, but no, the committee all seemed to agree on this version of it, so this is what we walked away with.
Rob, if we entertain the idea of having partial early release, does that impact the ADA in any way?
No, I mean, if we're doing it now, with multiple early release days, it would still all work out. You know, my concern with that, with having early releases on one campus and not on the other, might be just from the standpoint of having to explain that to people. Why do we do it on one campus and why and not on another? It just looks kind of funny.
And if you have you're a parent of kids in different schools and you have to now manage 2 different times that they're coming out.
To me, it'd be the same as explaining the late start on Wednesdays. I mean, you know, middle schoolers don't get it, right? Just the high schoolers.
Nobody else gets it, yeah.
So.
Yeah. I guess that early release thing has been such a part of our culture though for a long time that you know, it would be something people would ultimately get over, I think, just like everything else. But we would go through a period of it being kind of awkward.
Yeah, we'd have a couple of grumblers out there.
People having to explain that, yeah.
And then on the 15th of February and the 15th of March, would those be make-up snow days? Do we need to title that or?
Yeah, in our final version, those 2 days would be the first to go for
Okay.
snow makeups. We had kind of batted around the idea of even adding a blurb to our calendar. I think we've had this in the past, but I don't know if it was on this year's calendar, where we said after the first, 5 missed days, we will at that point then take this day and this day, as opposed to kind of arbitrarily deciding we're going to take a day, just deciding that. In the past, we have not always, if we miss a day, we're taking that day automatically. So we may want to describe exactly how it is that we will arrive at taking those 2 days if we need to. But maybe after the first 3 missed days or after the first 4 missed days, because quite frankly, the teachers would probably rather, everybody would probably rather have those 2 days off if we don't have a lot of snow days to break those long months up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we might not want to just zap them as soon as we miss 2 snow days. In other words.
Well, the March one won't be so bad because you've got, right.
Yeah,
you're
that,
coming
that, that, that February.
You're coming right
Coming back from January, February, I mean, you need that.
Yeah.
You need a little bit of a break. Just hope for, February's gonna have some.
Yeah. And then what about one other thing? Would anybody be opposed to doing this at a 2-year cycle? Like doing 2 calendars at a time? Because I know all of us, I think, have gotten several calls from, especially like the medical families, like nurses, doctors, that are having to put their stuff in like in November. And so they're like, should I put in for this week of fall break or not? Because is it gonna be the same? Is it not? And I think if we
Just
had
giving
a
it 2
2-year
years.
out,
Giving it 2 years and then maybe switching when it's done so that it's.
I don't know, just wondering if that would be hard for
Is
you all.
there a
You
certain
guys know.
time that it has to be turned in and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Well, people, probably would have, honestly, I probably got on this a little bit too late. They probably would have rather had it before.
We typically do it in November, I feel
So, yeah, I
like.
would
Vote on it
say
December.
we're kind of running out of time this year for something like that, because that would probably involve quite a bit more research. I'm not sure we can pull that off before the next board meeting, but.
What, another calendar?
Yeah,
Oh,
a 2-year calendar.
no, I'm just saying like,
For in the
moving
future.
forward, like even if we met in the spring and went ahead
Oh, I
and
see.
did
Yeah.
21, 22.
Yeah, because, most people are scheduling them in January, but some people are scheduling them in November for the next year.
Yeah.
And so,
I feel like we experimented with that 2-year calendar at least one time in the not too distant past, and I'm not real sure why we didn't go back to that. But my guess, if I had to guess, was that it probably created a problem when and if anything had to change, you were kind of stuck.
Mm-hmm.
That is the only thing I would throw out there.
What if you even just did fall breaks and spring breaks the same, something like that? I think that's the 2 dates most people care about.
Why don't we do this, Rob, why don't you contact KDE and see what's involved there? I know that there are some districts who do that planning and adopt calendars 2 years in advance. If we adopted at some point this academic year, the calendar for 21-22, next year, we would be adopting the calendar for 22-23. We would, after this year, we would always have to adopt one calendar, but it would be a year out. So, and I get what you're saying, and I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
If you adopt a calendar 2 years out and for some reason have to change it, if the statute changes, something of that nature, then you put people at times in a pickle and that can affect ADA. But if you don't care, just look into that, see what would be involved. There are a lot of families, I will take, my wife has to schedule vacation a year in advance, and that could be an issue. And it's just not, obviously, it's not about me. There are people whose schedules are not school schedules.
Thank you. And thank you for all you do and all that work. We know you do a lot, so I appreciate it. Any other questions for Rob or any of the principals that were on the committee?
thank you, I'm sure that's
It's fun.
You go through a ton and then we all throw our 5
Well,
or 6 things
yeah.
at it too.
No, I mean, that was good discussion. What we, and the idea to have to poll the staff is not difficult to do, and
Right.
no skin off anybody's back.
Well, then they have a say, and then we listen to what they had to say, and
Sure, that's
know.
that's the point of all
Right,
this.
exactly,
So, no
exactly.
problem.
all right, next we're gonna move into the annual review and update on the district wellness program. Is this you again, Rob?
Caitlin and me.
Yeah.
We kind of both picked this one up because she's kind of officially wearing the hat as our health coordinator in our district, but I had the experience of being on a wellness team as a principal, so we've kind of been through the process a little bit. So she and I worked together on this, but the information that was sent to you in the packet, I had not really planned to go through that with a fine-tooth comb with you here tonight. I don't know if anybody had any questions about those findings and recommendations or the school brochure. I'll give you a little bit of just information about it. The school brochure, which is this one here, Vicki Benton updates, and she takes information from the schools and from cafeteria sales, prices, nutrition charts, all that good stuff, and updates this once a year. The schools are responsible for the portion there that are the findings and recommendations. You'll see there's a sheet there for the elementary, middle, and high. You'll notice it was dated May of 2019. We got started on that, quite frankly, a little bit late last year. So we did this a little bit out of timeline, but not terribly. So we've completed this in the spring, and everybody has a section there for a nutrition environment, a health environment, and a physical activity environment. And so the point there being kind of turns into a bit of an improvement plan, if you will, for each of the three schools. And they have some time to kind of work on that. And then it's sort of a cyclical thing where every 3 years we do an assessment of our program using an agreed upon assessment tool. And then after that, we start working on our improvement plan, as it were. So what we're doing right now is we are just putting this in front of you so that you can see it, offer any feedback or comments if you'd like. We'll take that in and make sure we've got our final health and wellness report ready to go. All that has to be posted on our website, but it does not require any sort of board approval motion or anything like that. So really more or less just an informational piece for you and for our public. And incidentally, all of the schools committees have some parent input on that as well, and representation from classified, certified, school nurse, someone from the cafeteria staff, usually the cafeteria manager. So it's well represented, and the schools are set to do a large reevaluation of their health programs next fall. So in between, you just do a review of your findings and recommendations. So that's kind of the process and where we are right now with it. So at this point, are there any questions or comments you'd like to offer about some of the findings and recommendations that you saw? I thought they were pretty thorough myself.
So my only question is, and I see here it's noted that it's in the code of conduct that like kids are not allowed to eat anywhere other than lunch, and
are you on a specific school or just?
Well, all of them. I think all of them are.
They probably all say something to that.
To basically to that effect, which I was trying to, you kind of think about like we're having a Christmas party tomorrow. We're not going to have food at elementary school, but I get that, but. Kind of, that's more of like an emotional thing, like, oh, we want to feed ourselves with cupcakes and all this junk in the classroom. So I get cutting that kind of stuff out, but I'm kind of curious who says that you should only eat at lunch and that's it, as far as all this goes, because I know I snack all day, And I know that kids with a very high metabolism, or our kids that are out there playing sports right now, we're only letting you eat at lunch and that's it. We can't even limit it to bananas and oranges or apples or, you know, we're basically saying you get nothing. You know, I see we can have water at school, and I get that. They don't need a Mountain Dew in the middle of class, but they should be able to have healthy options. I'll hide this. Yeah, I mean, is there, what do we need? I'm kind of looking at that, and I know this might be not the greatest spot to bring this up, but I know that a lot of parents that I deal with, because my kid does eat a lot and burns a lot, you know, they're spending a ton on the lunches. You know, sometimes I might buy 2 or 3 lunches for a son a day. Only one of them. But, you know, and then trying to eat all day to feed that metabolism. And I know that from everything I've heard lately, you know, shouldn't eat like I do once a day. You should eat multiple times. So when can we kind of revisit any of that? Is that with this, or do we need to discuss that at a different point?
Yeah, that's with this. I mean, I can add that as
I mean, even it's like I said, even it's just like the water. You know, they're allowed to have water. They're allowed to have unprocessed foods or whatever. I wouldn't care. Just
right now, the policy is no food in the classrooms. That doesn't necessarily, like at the elementary school, I'll just speak with that one because that's the one I know the best. But with the elementary school, the kids, you know, we never said you couldn't have a snack, but if you wanted to have a class snack time, for example, you would take them to the cafeteria to do that all at one time. I don't know if our other building principals want to comment on that aspect of.
If it reads only at lunch, it's supposed to read you eat in the cafeteria. So if you eat at different points, so some kids come down in between breaks when the cafeteria is open. They just need to eat that food in the cafeteria. That's a big deal about the food allergies in classrooms and mice in the classroom. So that's kind of a deterrent for those 2 things. Do I think some get to eat in the classroom? Probably. You know, yes, I probably think that. And I think the kids know where it's safe to eat and, you know, where it's not safe to eat. But the rule is on the code of conduct, all food is to be eaten in the cafeteria for those 2 big reasons. Yeah. But that was a big movement a long time ago. Like when I first got here 6 years ago, that was the big force because of the allergies and the rodents. Because we all know kids aren't that neat with their
They
food.
always dispose of everything.
Or the teachers either.
And it wasn't that long ago to where the elementary moved away from even buying snacks for parties and stuff like that. And I can't remember.
For a while,
there was a big
it had to be
discussion
store-bought,
about that.
and then a couple of years
We
ago,
had a
it went
big
to nothing.
meeting.
Like 2 years ago, it went to
Yeah.
nothing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, something like that.
Non-food incentives.
Yeah.
Right.
Which-
Promoting the nutrition, you know. I know it's not as feel good, but I always go back to the story of my kid that brought in the 20-pack of the little teeny tiny Play-Dohs and gave those out, and man, what a treat. Everybody loved them. So it can be done without food. It's maybe not quite as economical to hand out a bag of Twizzlers, but it's, you know, it can be done. So are you saying students at certain times do have the option to stop at the cafeteria and work down
We have like
an old bar if they need to?
Yeah. We don't promote that, but the cafeteria is open because of the middle school lunch. So if they come down to get it, they just have to eat it before they walk out.
Yeah.
Do they all do that? No.
Yeah, I think it was just
It's high school, it's teenagers.
a big discouragement to have mixing that food environment with the learning environment, because it just, you know, it does create some problems. But I can certainly put this in our notes as some
Yeah, I
public
mean,
feedback.
just be something to.
Sure. If there's any other.
You know, I deal with parents of hungry teenagers.
Yeah, right.
So.
And we can certainly brainstorm on that idea and at each school's committee meetings, and you know, perhaps there's a solution to that.
Thank you.
Anything else for Rob? Thank you both for doing that, appreciate it. Next is other, Dr. Baker.
Board members, you have a small token of gratitude in front of you there. We have, we're in the process of distributing those to all staff members, and I can say that, you know, this is in keeping with tradition, but I've already received 6 or 8 emails from staff members letting us know how much they appreciate that, and I think it's an important part of our culture. It's a good investment, and just want to kind of endorse that practice. I think it's well worth the financial investment. I just want to remind everybody, I think you know this is coming up, that February 21st through the 23rd is the KSBA annual conference in Louisville at the Galt House. If you haven't received anything on that, you will in the future, and I'll include some information for you in a Friday email, and Carrie can make arrangements for all of us, but I will do a better job this year of kind of coordinating and hope that we can all go out to dinner one evening and spend some time together, quote, off the clock. So that's all I have. Just want to wish everybody a real Merry Christmas, and you'll get a Friday update tomorrow, and you won't get another one until next year. So next decade, that's right.
Anybody else have anything?
I do. So, and I don't know if this is true or not, so that's why I'm asking. Do we have smoke detectors in our bathrooms? Is there a reason why we don't? Isn't that where a lot of vaping happens?
Vaping won't be.
You don't, it's not, you have to have a vape detector, which
Vape detectors are very expensive.
Ah.
well, you know what though? Owen County got them, and I think they got them on a grant of some sort.
We can check.
I mean, I've seen.
They are-
about the
I-
relationship, but-
So I believe the principal told me they were like $1,000 a piece.
Let me
And I know
say,
that's but if you think about how much less time these
So-
assistant principals would have to do if the kids knew there was a smoke detector there, then that's time they could be working instead of patrolling the bathrooms.
Well, and that's why it was brought to me by a parent. They're like, why is there not, and I know nothing about vaping and it not being detected by a normal smoke detector.
let me say, as a high school principal, we wrote a grant through the health department, and we put smoke detectors in our restrooms. And here's literally what had to happen. My assistant principals had to, it was like a beeper. And when somebody smoked in the restroom, that beeper went off and they had to go to the restroom. Problem is, if the administrator who's available at that time is a male and it's in the female restroom, what do you do with it? You gotta find a teacher to get in there. We also, and I'm just speaking from personal experience, hairspray at times would set those things off. So it can be a bit of an issue. I'm sure now that was 10 years ago, 12 years ago. I'm sure the technology's improved since then.
So we did
But
that.
we will look into it. We'll certainly look into it, but I don't know that it's a perfect solution.
No, I talked to, we had a big meeting of directors of facilities, and there is one school that did put vape detectors in, and it notifies you through text messages and emails.
Okay.
And they put, it takes basically 2 per restroom. So they did say it'd be about $2,000 per restroom. They are very, very sensitive. You get triggers all the time, and they do work. They did have a teacher that was a vapor go in there and test it out for them. They haven't really moved anywhere past this one school. So it's only in one of their schools, I think out of like 30 that they have. They're just trying to do a trial basis, and I can kind of keep up to date on that if you all would like.
Was the 2 per restroom, was 1 male, 1
It's-
female, or
no,
2 in the
it's
male?
2 in the male, 2 in the female.
Was that because it was a
of
bigger school and it had a lot more restrooms, or?
No, it's just the square footage. of
Square
the
foot,
restroom.
that's what I mean,
Yeah,
so
it
like,
can only detect so much. per
we have
square
smaller
foot.
ones probably, right? That'd be huge.
Yeah, but then you
They're all
don't have to
fairly
worry about
similar.
putting them in every restroom and all that, because they're gonna figure it out and they'll go to that one.
Katie.
But you guys do not understand the problem that these have become.
Well, we can gather data and
Yeah, I can get all
information.
that for you.
We'll start with just discipline data from the high school. You know, I know that's tracked real closely. How many vaping incidents have occurred this year? How does that compare to last year? Is it getting worse? Is it getting better? You know,
No, it's not.
getting worse.
It's getting worse, way worse.
We'll gather some information.
But yeah,
Okay, I can get numbers and everything like that for you all if you want.
Yeah.
Kind of what the other schools are doing. I know that in the discussion, they did say they were trying to wait it out because it was so expensive at this point, that they were hoping to get cheaper.
true, yeah.
So
Makes
that
sense.
was a conversation we did have.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd be nice if there was grants for like the
I feel like that's what he told me, it's a friend of mine, that's.
Like those, because they want us to be back in 3 and all that, there is.
Yeah. Anything else?
That was,
Good. All right, anybody in the audience of citizens?
Nope.
Nope, thank you, Kevin, I appreciate that. All right, moving into recommended board motions. First is the approval of the minutes.
I'll make a motion.
First by David. Discussion or questions? Is there a second?
I'll make it.
Second by Kyle. All in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Next is approve the treasurer's report.
I'll make it.
First by Heather. Discussions or questions? Is there a second? Second by Stacy. All in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Next is approve the order of the treasurer, the bills.
I'll make it.
First by David. Discussions or questions?
I didn't see any questions, I'm trying to scroll through them today.
No, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll make it.
Second by Kyle. All in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Next is approval of the 2018-2019 audit report.
I'll make it.
First by Kyle. Any further discussions or questions?
Good job, Kevin.
Job, Kevin.
Yeah,
Staff?
and I've paraded them in here before, but the bookkeepers
Yeah.
and Brittany and Danielle do a fantastic job. I just kind of coordinate that stuff, so yeah, don't let him oversell it. on me.
I just don't know how
important
much you paid
part of
them.
that. Right. Yeah. They, but no, those guys all do an excellent job, and I try to be considerate of their time and not make them come in here just to hear me say that. But they really do. We've had a great team, and I feel like we've got some new people involved this year, and they're just as good. And don't expect anything to change with that. So.
Well, thank you all. We appreciate it. Is there a second? Second by Stacy. All in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Next is approval to develop a new district facility plan.
Make it.
First by David. Discussions or questions? Is there a second?
I'll make it.
Second by Kyle. All in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Next is approval of the REH architects to assist in the district in developing the information needed for KDE submittal and guide for the LTC.
I'll make it.
First by Kyle. Discussions or questions? Is there a second?
I'll make it.
Second by Heather. All in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Next is approval of 3 community business leaders to serve on the LPC.
I'll make the motion.
First by David. Discussions or questions? You guys should have seen that attached in your thing and had a chance to look over that. So we have 4 that have put in for it, then we need 3. Really loud out there. Thank you, Joanne. Hey! Thank you all. No, it didn't, that's why I was kind of like hesitant. Okay, so we have 4 that have applied, or expressed an interest in this, so, does anybody have any questions on any of them, or any, like, personal knowledge, or that they would like to share?
I think it was 4 great candidates. No offense to these 4, I wish we'd had a lot of people apply, but, I think they're all great choices.
Right.
The only question I had, and it may be a question for Rob, I don't know if you know the answer, Dr. Baker, but since 2 of the candidates are from the city, are they both, is there any conflict of interest with both of them being on there?
I'm not aware of any. This is a case where I wish we had Don attend our board meetings, because he would know. I'm not aware of any, but I will be the first to admit, there may be something that I'm unaware of.
Yeah,
That is.
Thank you for coming to my
that was my only misgiving with.
Thank you, guys.
Everything clear? Everything okay? Okay.
Everything's under control.
I'll sit here, then it's under
Spit
control.
it out, just
Soon
spit
as
it
she
out
opens
for
my
you.
door.
Okay, Rob, we have a question for you. I know. We have a question for you, Rob.
All right. So my question was, so we're talking about the community members for the, to serve on this board.
LPC.
Is there any issue with having 2 folks from the city serving on that board at the same time? I didn't know if there would be a conflict of interest. It gave me pause when I saw that you could have that choice.
That was me putting all this together for you guys.
I'm probably not your expert on that.
Okay.
I don't wanna weigh in on that one.
When I read through it, it doesn't, the only stipulation, I believe it says, I looked it up, I'll read it right to you. Says just the business community leaders shall not be employed by the LEA or serve on the local board of education. That is the only stipulation that it states on here, and they must provide a letter of agreement to serve. So I would assume if they're not on the board of education or the LEA, I think they're fine. I mean, I can't see them. And yeah, we have to have exact number of 3.
Yep.
I don't see it. I don't think it would cause a problem as long as they're a business community leader. And if they're in our community and they're in the district, I believe it would be okay.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. I don't know how we want to talk about this. I mean, my recommendation would be, and this is just me speaking, like that we have one person from the city as opposed to like doubling up 2 from the city. I'd rather give more of a well-rounded feel to the board, so that would be my opinion on that.
And I think that's safe too. We don't have to go back.
Yeah, that way there's
revisit
no
it, right?
question.
I would agree with that. So, should we just vote on each one? As we have any questions?
He agreed with him.
Huh?
The mayor agreed with him.
Yeah.
I do have a question. I would assume probably, just knowing council, I would assume the other person is Councilor Wainwright. No?
Nope.
No.
That's right. Well, I was gonna say, I mean, if it needs be, I'm on enough boards, I would gladly back out if it makes your decision easier.
Oh, it does.
I would love to be a part of it, I really would,
We have
but.
4 applicants for 3 positions.
Right, so if it makes it easier on you, I have no problem, you know.
If you fall on your
and if
sword.
there's something yeah, I mean.
If you
say
take
my-
one for the team, then we're done here.
My only thing with that is though, I mean, it is out there that it's another council member. Is there things that you know in advance that they are gonna know a month later? Or, you know?
They might not know at all.
Right, that's my only thing with that.
Well,
Yes and no, it depends.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things are gonna go to these 2 here before they get to us. And that's kind of my thought as far as having you know, you're probably involved with a lot more than all 5 of the council members, I shouldn't say
Yeah,
that.
I'm on like 5 boards or 4 boards, other than, I'm on PDS board,
Right.
for the Kentucky Ag District, so, I mean, I've got enough to occupy my time, plus I also have to keep the lights on at the house, but I thought when you were talking about future developments, and, you know, myself, you know, graduating from Walton, and I've got a construction background, so thought I could add something or some insights, but, you know, like I said, I've got enough to keep myself busy, so if it makes it easier on you all, I have no problem.
I mean, that's my thing, is easier doesn't mean it's,
I mean,
Right.
if you're willing to do that, that would.
I mean, I'm gladly, if there's something, you know, somebody has a question on it at some point, I'm glad to
Right.
give you my input on it.
Okay.
I've never had a problem with opening my mouth about anything in the past.
What? You haven't?
No.
So is this your official withdrawal?
Yes, I will officially withdraw. How about that?
Okay.
Thank you, Gabe.
Thank you.
It's not like there was one meeting.
Okay, so where are we? Approval of the 3, so now we have
right,
3.
you just freed up
All right,
10
so
hours in the
David
next couple months.
did it?
I'll make a
Okay, David made a motion. Is there a second on the 3 committee members?
I'll second it.
Second by Kyle. All in favor? Motion passes 5-0. So who's gonna notify them?
I will.
You will, okay. Okay, thank you guys. Next is the approval of 1 board member to serve on the LPC.
I'll make it.
First by David, discussions or questions?
Not to be outdone by the mayor, but I want to make this easy on you guys too. I know, Kyle, you're interested in this position. I think both of us had put in for this, but I think you'd be great at this, and so I will respectfully withdraw my name from the running, so I defer to you, Kyle.
I appreciate that. It's sort of in my wheelhouse.
All right, well, this is getting easier as the day goes on. Thank you, David.
No problem.
Kyle, are you still interested, or is this something you still want to do? Because he already just dropped out, so now we would have to do it. All right, okay, is there a second on the motion?
I'll make it.
Second on Heather. All in favor of Kyle serving? Motion passes 5-0. Next, the approval of the 2020-2021 high school course fees.
I'll make it.
First by Heather. Discussions or questions?
Thank you, Joanne, for
Yeah.
sending that.
You're welcome.
All seem very reasonable.
Good. And some even went down.
Yeah,
That's nice.
we try to be fiscally
There
responsible.
you go, that's awesome. Thank you. Is there a second? Second by Stacy. All in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Next, this is an exciting one. Approval of the surplus bid results and recommendations. I've never been this excited. David is
It's rare
first.
that we come to you with a motion where you make
Make money. We never. We're almost. So we're like, bring it in. Good. Okay, David was the first. Is there a second on it? Second by Kyle. All in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Next, the approval of the driver agreement for the board-owned vehicle M. Latham and K. Schweitzer.
I'll make it.
First by Heather. Discussions or questions? Is there a second? Second by Kyle. All in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Next is approval to enter into executive session pursuant to KRS 61.8101F.
I'll make it.
First by Heather. Is there a second?
I'll make it.
Second by David. We are going to enter into executive motion, is there how many, all in favor?
All in favor.
5, none opposed, 5-0. So now we're in executive session.